Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Crossroads podcast. Today we have a very interesting session on a global crossroad, which will relate around the world of work. This is a space, a place in which we spend at least 1/3 of our days, so definitely thought it would be worth talking about it a bit today. With the main guiding question in mind, can we actually find a job that we enjoy? So to discuss a bit about this topic, I have invited, and I'm really grateful that Ula can be with us today. Hi Ula, how are you?
Hi, it's a pleasure. I'm very good. Thank you.
Very nice to seeing you again, and I'm really sure that we are in good hands for a nice conversation today. Actually, I benefited myself from in the past from the support of Ula as both a career coach in the time of university, and also then on a personal one-on-one consulting again about the world of work and related topics. So I can say from first hand that I really benefited from that support. So I hope, and I'm sure actually, that today's conversation will be also very positively influenced by this. Ula, would you like to say a few words about yourself, to introduce briefly yourself?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I work as a career coach and a consultant. And I've been doing it for, someone asked me to calculate. I think maybe it was my accountant. I've been doing it for about 17 years with different groups of people. So I've worked with students quite a lot, MBA students, with mid-career professionals. That's my main group of clients, with executives, also people from different industries and from different cultures. So my specialty is complex career crossroads. So usually people who are actually not only changing jobs but also changing professions or relocating. So a slightly more complicated, especially mid-career, where there are lots more factors to take into account than maybe for a student who's just at the beginning.
Thank you very much again for being here today with us. I would like to start with a few facts that I read in a recent opinion poll published by Gallup. And I was surprised to read that actually the employees' engagement, and I think this is an indicator that they use to measure, among others, the satisfaction of people with their work and their work situation, generally speaking. And so the employees' engagement in Europe was actually the lowest in the world, and just a bit over 20%, so 1 in 5 more or less people were somehow consider themselves engaged, therefore satisfied with their job. Surprisingly enough, also over 50% actually were unsatisfied or completely unsatisfied with their job, and 2/3 have thought already about changing their jobs, or they had already done it. So I think we all heard a bit recently about this great resignation and its consequences. So maybe this doesn't come as a full surprise. However, the numbers are quite dramatic in a way. So it bears the question, like, is there actually something that we can do about it? Or in your opinion, in your experience, is it just not realistic maybe to hope to find the job that we love? So are we doing it the wrong way, or what's your experience on this?
It's complicated, and it depends on many things. So this is something that this is a very typical answer from a career consultant. It depends, and it's not simple. I would say I agree that the Gallup data is not a happy picture. So people who have great potential, wonderful skills, who could do a fantastic job when they're fully engaged and motivated and sort of a good fit with the company culture, they're actually spending their time and energy on something else and maybe quiet quitting, so kind of doing the absolute minimum, or actually planning their next career move. And it's a shame. It's a loss for all of us, for the person who's not happy in their job, but also for the employer. I would, to answer your question about what perhaps we're doing wrong and if it's possible to have a kind of perfectly happy job, I think I think, well, based on my experience and based on studies, it is possible to have a very fulfilling job, and it is possible to be engaged. It's probably not possible to have a perfect job that's crafted exactly, sort of custom made especially for you, right? I mean, we're always, as with any relationship, we're always going to be making some concessions and sort of doing some things that we're not super excited about. I'm not a huge fan of Excel, but for most of my collaborations, I have to do some reporting and a bit of accounting, and it is, as much as I much prefer working with people, it's always going to be there. So there's a margin of it, but there's also a kind of maximum of it that I can handle. And any job that requires me to do any more, I'm out of there quite quickly. So I think one thing that a lot of my clients do, I wouldn't say do wrong, but struggle with is perhaps these expectations, which could come partly from the media, maybe from LinkedIn, which is this this wonderful showcase of success and an achievement and the best, putting your best foot forward, but doesn't really show you how people struggle, and it doesn't show you disengagement, it doesn't show you disillusionment, it doesn't show you mistakes. So you kind of end up with this image that other people are much happier, right? And perhaps your benchmark goes up, and you start thinking, okay, well, why isn't my life a constant source of satisfaction? But I think the second thing that people could do better when choosing jobs is to really get to know themselves. So there's a lot of soul searching and self-awareness to be done, where we don't do it for a lot of reasons, right? So there, either we sacrifice our own well-being or our happiness for other external things. So let's say for financial stability, for a kind of for progression, for learning. But I'm dealing with people who are not only disengaged, but since the beginning of the pandemic, unfortunately, I'm also dealing much more with people who are also burnt out. And that's the kind of extreme of not finding a good fit, not really doing the proper conversation with yourself, where you ask yourself, okay, what do I want? What do I like? What charges my life batteries? What activities actually are a source of satisfaction? What are my favorite talents that I have? So not just the competences that I have that other people value, but actually things that I enjoy doing. So let's say the ones that I like about myself and I want to see myself performing. And I wouldn't say it's possible to have 100% of all the boxes ticked, but if you don't ask those questions to yourself at all, then you're partly responsible for doing a job that you're not super happy with, right? So if it's not a job that fits your temperament and your personality and the skills that you actually enjoy using, and you're kind of rationalizing it by finding reasons why it's a good idea to just kind of have your own self on the back burner, then you're not going to be engaged, right? I'm kind of simplifying things a lot, but
definitely.
So the basic thing is actually having a conversation with yourself about yourself, getting some feedback from other people. What do you think I do well, and where have you seen me at my best? And also for mid-career professionals who are trying to decide on the next step, so they catch themselves maybe not at a crossroads career-wise, but in a position where they're not super happy. Maybe they feel stuck, maybe they feel stagnant and like they're not developing, maybe they're stressed more than they would like to be stressed, there's no balance in their life. It's a nice idea to draw a kind of graph of their work satisfaction over the years, so sort of see, okay, how has it changed, how happy I was in different jobs. And then when you look at the kind of peaks and valleys, the high points and the low points, to think, okay, well, what was, are there any patterns for all the career highs? What was there that I really enjoyed? And what was it that in my particular case makes me happy job-wise? Is it people? Is it challenges? Is it a good boss? Is it a certain kind of activity? Is it an international environment? So just kind of really seeing that. And then also what makes me unhappy? What was the secret of the places where I was too stressed or burnt out or disengaged? It's very individual, right? But this exercise, you kind of, chart your own kind of happiness story and try to play detective and say, okay, what was the secret of this happiness on the job?
And I would be curious, were there any patterns that you observed in your clients, like when drawing this personal chart? Like, were there any common things that actually maybe were not even so evident before doing this graph, and then came up thanks to this analysis, that were maybe common between different people?
Yes, some of them are not surprising. So there's a really nice book by Daniel Pink called Drive, which is about motivation and what motivates most people at work. And for me, it was interesting because it showed how all their systems of motivating employees, which was a kind of carrot and stick. We'll pay you a lot. That's the carrot. We'll promote you, but also there are some, let's say, punishments or consequences to not really conforming. How that worked maybe in the industrial age, but when we have people who have to be creative and work with their brains, white collar workers who are supposed to show a lot of initiative, making, sort of dangling a carrot and sort of waving a stick is not going to cut it. And Pink writes about 3 common things, and actually in this graph, they really come out. So one absolutely universal motivator for people, something that makes them happy, is autonomy. And this, I think, explains why a lot of people are very happy with this transition into remote work. So a lot more flexibility in choosing when exactly I work, how I plan my day. Do I do a bit of exercise in the middle of the day, for example, because I need to take a walk or wash the dishes or, spend some time with my kid. And suddenly we all discovered that we can be very productive when we're actually in charge of our own the place, the time, and the way we work. So autonomy is a huge motivator, and it really gives people a huge boost in satisfaction. The second one is competence. So this feeling that you're effective at what you do, that you do really, that you do a good job, that you're actually, kind of reaching mastery. And that was something that when I do this exercise with my clients, they also say, okay, that was the time when I felt I was learning. So even though I was a bit tired, I wasn't really sleeping a lot, I felt like I was on this really lovely learning curve, and I was really developing, and I was becoming really good at what I was doing. So that's a common theme. And the third one is being of service, of actually doing something that makes sense. You see an impact and you see a usefulness in what you do. So again, people saying, okay, here I was kind of unhappy because I was working I'm just going to be very stereotypical here, for a corporation and a tobacco company. And, it just felt abstract, like I wasn't really serving anyone. And here I was working for in the CSR department, or I was working in the HR, and actually felt like I was in contact with people and they were really benefiting from my work, and it made a huge difference. And I would say the fourth thing, which Pink doesn't write about, but a lot of my clients mention, is people. Is basically a sense of belonging, and a sense that you are surrounded by, kind of healthy, non-toxic people that you trust and you respect at work and you can learn from.
I really like this. Thank you very much, Ula, for sharing. And actually, my question, just listening to this, would be: so should we just try to maximize, let's say, these components to a mix that fits most, let's say, our personal preferences? So, like, should we go about autonomy, competence, service, and people, or does it still make sense about thinking about our purpose? I feel like this is like quite a buzzword that I heard, or myself. I found myself thinking about it, like, what is my purpose? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Or what should I do? And so on. And I think you already mentioned it before when saying that, especially after the pandemic, people end up thinking much more about, or should think more about, what they like and what is best for them. But how do we find maybe the perfect place for us between the 4 components that you mentioned before, and still thinking maybe about purpose and individuality and why we do what we do?
Absolutely. I think people put a slightly different weight on these things, right? So there are some people who are willing to give up a little bit of the independence and autonomy, but they actually want to focus on purpose. And there are people who say, okay, I don't have to have a job with an NGO, but I do want to see impact, right? That, I'm shaping something and I've got some decision making power. So it sort of takes different forms. But another exercise that I can suggest, and this is 100% individual. So here, we're not relying on any models or any kind of, nice books, but this is really a conversation with yourself right here, right now. This is something I started doing when I was running workshops for psychotherapists, actually, who are, one of those professions that is really at risk of burnout. And it was a self-care workshop. So, kind of making sure that your work doesn't deplete your batteries, doesn't get you into a place where it's actually difficult to continue anymore, physically and mentally. And this lovely exercise that we did is basically drawing a little table with 3 columns. In the first column, you look at the things that currently in your current job charge your batteries. So things that are elements of your current job that you really enjoy, and you feel kind of invigorated, right? And you feel like you're enjoying it. You're also coming out of those, I don't know, conversations or activities or elements of your job with kind of happier and stronger and more confident and generally, reinvigorated. So that's the sort of nice sort of batteries up column. Then obviously the next column is looking at the things that deplete your batteries. So again, maybe types of clients or types of activities or types of meetings or types of or elements of the working culture, the relationships that aren't really good for you. Yeah, so people here, when I ask my clients to list things here, sometimes they talk, for example, about this necessity in some cultures to be competitive, or tight deadlines, or KPIs that are a bit too unrealistic, or office politics. So things that kind of drain you of your energy. And the final column is, I call it interventions, but self-care interventions. So things that you can do if you happen to have a bad day where your batteries went really down. That things that you can do outside of work that make a difference. That again recharge your batteries, reset you, and make you feel better, right? Give you more strength to deal with a bad day. And the reason I like this exercise is that very often it's a nice indicator of someone's values. So things that matter to them, things that, that make a difference to them, and their personal preferences. So it's going to be a very different outcome for different people. So I do it with, I don't know, hundreds of people, and every time it's a little bit different. So the focus is on slightly different things. The emphasis is in slightly different places. So people find their own individual ways to deal with that. The second part of this exercise, once you map the current situation, sometimes you see the column with things that deplete your batteries has a much longer list than the first one. Right, the reinvigorating one. So that's already telling you something, right? If you have a long list of things that make you tired and disengaged, then the things that engage you and motivate you and make you happy, then it's pretty obvious that there's not a lot of balance. And as you said before, it's actually then the next step would be to think, okay, how can I maximize the things that give me pleasure, bring me joy, and make me feel like my work has some meaning and serves a purpose, and how can I minimize the things, delegate them, avoid some meetings, write emails and sort of try to lobby for a different policy on those long meetings that could be an email. Is there anything I can do? Yeah, where do I have any kind of control over this? Sometimes, unfortunately, the conclusion will be this job is not, or this culture is not really for me. It's not a good fit. There's just too much stuff that is structural or systemic, and I have to remove myself. But sometimes it's a question of actually talking to a few people and just arranging things with your team or with your boss a bit differently.
Thank you very much. And I was thinking as a final question, like in your opinion or in your experience, should someone reach the decision that actually this is not the right job for them, maybe, let's say, so they would find themselves in a situation of looking elsewhere, how can they maybe maximize their strategy and the result of this search in order to avoid the same ending up in a similar place? Because of course looking at what is important for them is a very useful tool, but at the same time it's not always easy to know or to fully understand how the next workplace will be. Is there any strategy to understand, maybe when preparing for the job search or for a job interview, or simply in the way of looking at this job search?
Yeah, I think when you say looking in the way you look at the job search, I think that would be the key. Most of my clients, realistically speaking, practically speaking, perceive the job search as a kind of casting, right? Like you would have a film casting, and you look for actors that are a good fit for a role. So they kind of look at it consciously or unconsciously as a kind of one-sided process where, there's a choosing side and the side that sort of sits there and says, oh, please pick me. So you're there almost trying to pass an exam and to prove that you're worthy. Not a lot of people, and I think it does make a huge difference, look at it as a kind of two-way casting. So you're also in the position of someone who's choosing. So there's a lot of different things that you can do during the job search to help yourself decide if this is a company for you or if this is a job for you. The first thing I really recommend is listing the parameters of the job. Let's say the parameters that this good optimal job for yourself needs to fulfill. So really go through position, industry, type of company, location, salary, be super specific. What is what would satisfy you, what would be good for you, type of people you want to work with, formula, right? Do you want to work hybrid, or do you want to work remote? Do you want to be in the office? And when you have that list, you also, it's good to prioritize. So, kind of divide it into must-haves and nice-to-haves. I think that's realistic, right? Although I did have a client with whom we did that. And then a few months later, he reported that he found a job that met 95% of the criteria. And I thought, that is beautiful, right? That he was happy, I was happy. So I would probably count on more like, 75 to 80% of the kind of ideal criteria. But it's really good to perform this kind of mental operation and say, okay, what are my priorities, so sort of non-negotiables? And what are some things that I can maybe negotiate or sacrifice, or, are maybe less important? The second thing is really being observant and keeping your parameters in mind when you look at job offers, when you participate in interviews. So really observing, how am I being treated? What is it telling me about the company culture and sort of the relationships here? How am I being informed about the next steps? What questions are they asking me? What are they telling me about the company, let's say officially, directly, but also indirectly, maybe between the lines? It's good to do some research. If you have any people that you can ask around, any people in the company that can give you some more information about the, inner workings. Again, you keep yourself informed, but always at the back of your head, it's good to have these parameters, right? The priorities. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is what matters to me. Is this job or is this company really doing it for me, right? And then the final thing, which again, I think someone mentioned it. It was just a casual passing remark. And then I thought, that's genius. Someone basically said the trial period is also for you. You're putting the company on trial. You're actually just seeing, okay, am I enjoying this? How am I feeling with this on an everyday basis? The job ad is just a tiny little bit of text, which, it's like a Tinder profile. It really tells you nothing about everyday functioning in the company. But then the 3 months is also about, seeing, okay, what's this company doing to my energy levels? What is it doing to my motivation? What is it doing to my engagement? Am I enjoying it or not? What's hard, what's not hard. So also treating it as a kind of trial period for yourself.
That's such a good point, and I think it reminds me of I was once thinking when interviewing for a company that I wish there was, as part of the interview, a trial period, but like really like, of course 3 months is better than just a few days, but even just a few days that, you know, would imply that you can maybe take 2 days off or a week off from your current job, and just while officially you're off, you just maybe are trialing, like in a sport, for example, you can do that and you'll see directly if you're a good fit with your teammates and your coach. Whereas in the job, I feel like sometimes it's just so difficult. You have to give in a 2-3 months notice and start a new job, and then maybe after 3 months you realize it's really not your thing, and but you feel like this has been really exhausting because it's been coming for like 6 months, maybe it's been this change has been wished for, and then it's just too complicated to start again. So like,
I think it's a really fair point, and I would actually add something which is very important to add. So obviously all the advice that I'm giving you, it sounds simple and straightforward, right? But life is sometimes a bit more complex and complicated, especially if, again, you're a mid-career professional with a mortgage, with kids. You make an investment, right? These 3 months are not cost-free. So obviously you're giving something up in order to be at that company. And if you really, you know, if you wanted to be very kind of casual about it, you would still have to find yourself something else lined up after you say, okay, no, I don't like you guys, bye-bye. I mean, if you want to be an adult about it, you would have something lined up afterwards, right? So it's not a kind of piece of cake. But it made me think of another thing that actually this morning I was working with a client, and I think one more thing to kind of go back to your original question, what people maybe do wrong when they're in these career transitions. One more thing that's important to say is that sometimes you are in a complicated situation. It's not a simple black and white choice. It does have several dimensions, and it will take you a little bit of time and observation and trial and error to figure it out. So people do put a lot of pressure on themselves when making career transitions. One, to immediately find the right concept and the right career and go for it. And then for life, they've made the right decision. Too much pressure, right? I would be more agile about it. I would just give myself a little bit of flexibility and also room for error. Yeah, if you can afford it. But it's also sometimes you can't afford it, and sometimes you are in a situation where your priority is money, for example, for your family. You can't make a perfect choice. You have to make a kind of compromise. But again, you can take some of the pressure off and say, okay, this is a temporary solution. Here and now, my priority is cash. Yes, steady salary and some security. But I don't know, in a year's time or in 2 years' time, again, I can change, right? So this is not something for life. So I think some of this pressure of being kind of a serious adult who commits to something can be a source of huge stress, right? And additional complications and maybe additional mental noise, right? When already you are facing a pretty complex decision, and you need to give yourself a little bit of space and a little bit of leeway to try things out and go easy on yourself.
So many good inputs, and I think it's really a great advice. Thank you so much, Ula.
Thanks a million.
It was great having you.
Lovely to be here. Thanks.